Hey everyone, I am on a out-of-state trip here this weekend. I always take a trip for a weekend and do some camping and spend an entire weekend scouting in an area that I do some bow hunting out here. And I just got done. I've been out in the woods already this morning. We moved a stand for my dad to a different location. He hunts out of ladder stands, and so we moved a spot that a nice little pinch point coming off an oxbow and a river system that I think looks pretty good for him. And now I just was in another piece that it's just a classic area where really difficult to hunt. It's just a small grove, just a grove on an old grain bin site, and it's a jungle in there. They've had a lot of storms here this summer, and so there's a lot of deadfall, and it's created it's really tough even maneuvering through a lot of these places, I've found out. So I need to get in here, and I really need to examine some of my old spots and see if they're still in good locations, if there's any trees that have done anything. But this last spot I just came from was kind of a classic situation where there's some nice thick bedding on the back side of this grove, or in one particular spot. It's kind of in the southeast corner of this grove, and there's always deer there in the fall, but it is so hard to hunt because it's so hard to get in there effectively and be able to not bump deer out. But I always am so tempted, and every year I come back, I go in there thinking I'm going to figure out a way. And so I prepared a spot that is, my plan here is to play it safer than I have been playing it. There's a faint trail leading out of the bedding. It's probably 100 yards from the best bedding and everything. So I think I'm far enough away where I might be able to get in there, get up a tree quietly and everything. I'd probably wait for a nice strong west-southwest wind type of situation, and then try to get in there. And then maybe at last light, actually my thought is maybe I could do a little light rattling or something with a rattle bag at the right, even little sparring sequences early in the season. So not aggressive rattling, but just light sparring sequences after the velvet comes off and everything. I've seen situations where that will pique a big one's interest and everything. So I got a spot ready there, and now I'm going to go into a spot where I'm really going to be going into some bedding cover here. So if I find some good spots here that kind of intrigue me, I'll kind of bring you along with me in here. So I'm going to get out there. And this is why it's good to come in and check these things, because this is the tree that I prepped last year during the rut. That was in a perfect location. Could have had a perfect spot on the river system where I could come up in a kayak. You can see how high the river is. It's just flooding everywhere around in here, high water levels anyway. But I could come up the river, bank the kayak, get about 10 yards on the shore and get into the tree. And there's this awesome bedding cover on the back side over there. You can see the tops of it right over there. It was in the perfect spot, just crazy trail system running through here, a nice worn bed right within shooting range of me, tucked into that bedding over there underneath the tree. And the storm got it. So I'm gonna have to find something new in here. And it's a huge mess in here. I've been cutting it just to try to get it in a situation where they could keep maneuvering through here like they had been in prior years. So I got a lot of work to do. All right, so here's what I ended up deciding on. We've got kind of a nice trail system. It's all grown up in here, but I was kind of picking apart the vegetation and stuff, and there's a pretty nice trail that runs kind of starting right through here and then just kind of goes back that way. There's a nice open area over there that has nice thick cover grown up that I know they bed in. And then I'm about, here you can see the trail a little better, but I'm about 20 yards from where this bedding, it's just a wall of cover right here. The ragweed in here is, 10, 12 feet high in a lot of places. It was kind of a nightmare getting through. And it'll look a little different once you know, we get freezes and stuff, and things start to die down a little bit. So I don't know how well you can see it, but I actually have this tree ready to climb into from the back side. I can slip up the river. The river is right back here, and I can slip up the river in my kayak and get in there if I have a shot to anywhere in here. I'm not exactly sure if I will. I don't right now. It's just too thick in here. I wouldn't have a shot to the vitals on anything that's moving through this thick stuff. So I decided to get a tree ready right on the outside in this clearing where it opens up. And it's not the best tree. Where am I? Right here. You can see how wide open it is. So obviously that's not ideal, but when you do saddle hunt like I do, so I'm gonna I would come in up the river, put the kayak on the bank, get in there, and I'd be hanging off the back side of that tree, and I would use that tree to kind of block me as they're coming. And then you do have, you know, a number of trees right here that I could time my movement pretty well. If they're coming from this direction, this tree, if they came from that portion of the bedding and out here and walk through, I could hide behind the tree and then wait till it gets behind this one right here. This is a nice thick one that kind of has a lean to it, and then shoot right when it gets to be about right here. So I'd have to time my movements really well, but I figure it's at least worth a try. It stinks that that tree blew down. That was in the perfect location. There's a huge trail system worn to the mud right on the edge of bedding cover that I could have gotten into so nicely if I could have been able to hunt out of that again this year, but that one blew down, so had to kind of compromise and find something else. And it's just so thick in there, and so many trees had blown down that there was no good setup for a tree that was right up against the river. So we'll give this a shot and see what happens. All right, guys, so next day, it's Sunday, and basically what I've done this weekend is just go like crazy, cutting and cutting and cutting, trying to open up lanes that can hopefully feed deer past where I have setups prepared. It basically, all of my spots from prior years they have been altered. Some of them are completely useless, where I've had to completely shift locations within like a 50-60 yard radius and stuff. But this is just a little piece that's on a little small river system. You can see the river back in there. There's a few mallards back in there. This is a nice oxbow that comes out within the river here. You've got nice brushy bedding cover on the tip of the oxbow here, cattails behind it. One of the biggest bucks I've ever shot, I'm almost positive came from the tip of this oxbow, and I had a setup behind here. So what I did was, you can see there is a faint trail through the grass here and everything. So I had to open that up, and so I just opened this up so he's got a nice clear lane to try to funnel him this direction. And then if he were to cut through here, he would be able to avoid my setup. So what I did was that just blew down, so that served as a nice blocker. And then I just added some of the deadfall right in here to try to get this stuff in here to try to keep him from going that direction. So if he comes off the tip of that oxbow, he's got to get here. You can see the trail system that goes right through here. It goes, back there ways. I had to open up, you can see like that was nothing but a mess that blocked off the trail system. So I opened that up, and then I opened this up so they could continue going right through here. And then I'll be on the back side of that tree there to get a shot here. It's about a 15-yard shot right here. So that's kind of what I've been doing this weekend, is just trying to get into as many spots as I possibly can in a 2-day period and open things back up and make it so I feel like I'm confident that I can come in and you know, have good spots, kind of with a mindset towards that rut period. But honestly, this spot right here, I like hunting these little areas that have good cover and food around them. Right now there's sugar beets on the outside of this, so once those get worked, usually they work the end rows first and everything, and that becomes really a awesome food source for them and everything. So I do like these for early season and stuff too, so this could be a good early season spot. And now I'm going to go over to a little bit different river system and try to get spots ready there for the rut, because I basically come out here on opening weekend for just 2-3 days, and then kind of after that it's kind of a rut mindset. So last November I came into this area right here. This is where the main stretch of timber is, and then the river system runs right on the backside over here. I came in here in November and it was littered with beds, with rubs and scrapes and things like that, and under these brushy trees, and just beds everywhere. And so this obviously is a really good bedding area once it cools down a little bit. I think it's a little too open in the summer time period when the sun is so hot, and so they're not bedding in here a ton right now. But as it gets cooler and everything, it's obvious that they shift to bedding a lot in here. And I wanted to get in here and really pick it apart. And so I came in here, and this is the primary trail that leads from the timber into this bedding area. And so I'm following it right through here. And then it opens up into the timber in here. So what I'm gonna do is I thought about doing a ground setup right in there. And I do have a spot over there kind of hollowed out, and I'm gonna put some cover in front of it and everything and get it ready in case I do wanna do that. But I think a great spot is going to be this tree right here. So I can hang off the back side of that. It's about a 18 to 20 yard shot right to here. I'm gonna get up there. I've got my saddle with right now and my tether and everything, and a few sticks or a few steps, and I'm gonna get up and just trim that away a little bit so I can hang off this left side and get a shot when it's right about here. So this could be a really good spot. I can come in up the river. I'll kind of park it over that direction a little more, and on like any kind of south-based wind, a southwest, southeast, straight south wind, it's going to be blowing my scent back that direction. So I'll get past this area, bank the kayak over there on the riverbank, and come in. Just going to have to cross this little stretch there, and I guess if something comes from that direction, they're probably going to pick up my ground scent, but that's just what you gotta. I'm just gonna have to deal with that and everything. I don't think a lot is gonna come from there. I think a lot of them, it looks like, are gonna slip right through here. So this is a pretty, this is about as good as I was hoping to kind of find when I came in here to pick this apart today and everything. So I'm pretty excited about this spot. All right, I got everything ready here. So here's the trail leading in, and then I've got that all cleared away. I'm gonna be hanging off that side of the tree, kind of on the back side a little bit, so I can stay hidden. And then right as I get into here, I'll have about a 18 yard shot. And I'll show you too, I was doing a little more exploring, went in over here. So here's where I was thinking about maybe potentially doing a ground setup, and those are that would be a really good bedding area, like a specific bed within all this open cover and everything. They're gonna wanna dig in underneath those, get a little shade, protection from whatever it might be, rain, snow, that type of thing. But I went over to this one right here, and there's a big worn bed right under it. A single bed, you know, just worn out under here and everything. I'm sure this is a good buck that is utilizing this at certain times of the year. Looks like it's maybe been used a little bit this summer, but not a lot recently and everything. But once we get cooler temperatures and everything like that, like this is kind of like the spot within this bedding area that I would think a big buck would kind of make his own and everything and come in and bed down. So, and I'm, you know, yeah, if that's what happens, I'm right here. I'm going to be right there waiting, and you know, they're going to nose along this stuff like crazy. When I came in last November, there was beds everywhere, so it was obviously does bedding in here and everything too. And you know, you can just envision during that rut period, bucks just constantly wanting to come through here, nose their way through here and everything, and check for does. So that's sweet that I found a main worn trail like that where it enters, and I have a great tree here to get up in and do. So if you can, you know, I always think, it's been my experiences hunting in areas like this, these river systems, is you have pockets of really good bedding, and then stretches where it might just be like open timber and everything, because the trees will go right up to the river in a lot of places. And so that just, if you don't have those openings in the canopy, you don't get areas in certain spots along the river that grow up into these lush, thick areas. You know, like there's over here, the tops over there, there's just huge ragweed over there, ragweed all along in there, right? I mean, the whole edge of this open grassland area is ragweed. And then you've got this nice cover in here. Then you've got these, you know, these little shrubby trees and everything like that that provide bedding. And if you can find a way to hunt right within these spots, you know, get in here, pick them apart, try to find like what I did here with that, you know, a main worn down trail system leading through. Or if you can find trails through this type of grass and everything, when the vegetation is this grown up, that is like worn to the point where you know it's a trail, like a really good trail, then you know that it's a spot that they're utilizing a ton. And so yeah, I just don't think, I always think that being able to hunt these type of areas is the difference between having a chance at maybe that, you know, whatever a big buck is in your area, maybe it's a 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer, instead of hunting out in maybe pinch points or something like that in the middle of wide open timber. That can certainly work, but I think a lot of times my experience with that is that in that seeking phase of the rut, like that November, you know, first week in November, things like that, that's when you're seeing a lot of like 2.5-year-olds, 1.5-year-olds kind of moving through those type of areas and everything. So, you know, if you want to shoot a deer like that, then obviously those are good areas to target and everything. But I always think that you know, a doe is certainly going to lead a big buck, if she's in heat, is going to lead a big buck into crazy places, you know, through those pinch points and wide open timber, into open fields, that type of thing. But I think more consistently, big bucks, you know, those 4.5-year-old deer and up, even 3.5-year-old deer in areas that are pressured a lot, I don't think they like leaving, you know, being far away from security cover where they can just disappear into and everything. So if you can find a way to hunt these areas, they are awesome areas to target during that, you know, end of October, beginning of November time period, when they're starting to get on their feet and really start looking for does and everything. So it can be tough, you know, access can be really difficult. That's why river systems are really nice. You can use water to get in here and everything, or just, you know, find another creative way to get in and everything. I realize that's not always possible in a lot of locations, but if you have access to that, these are the type of areas to target if you're looking for a little bit older deer and everything. So here's an example of where the way that the timber fell during the storm ended up kind of helping me a little bit. So this is an insane pinch point that comes right through here. They go up this direction. I had to clear a bunch of junk there to get that cleared again, and they come around this direction, and there's a crossing right here that's just like mowed down, right through there. And there's really good bedding all around me right here. You can see how thick the cover is. Really thick back in that direction. It's just a jungle back there right now. But I've shot 2 bucks here out of this tree right there. Kind of a, you know, like I've said in a number of trees, it's in the spot where I need to be. I wish it had more background cover, but when I'm saddle hunting, I'm using the backside of that tree as cover. So neither of the bucks I saw could see me up there. But what happened on one of them is one came to the base of my tree, and I also lost a huge buck that instead of following this down, it crossed that crossing there and went up to the base of my tree for whatever reason. I'm entering from the back side, so they're not following my ground scent at all or curious about any of that. But with this tree here now, that's fallen. So this should actually make this even better to keep them from getting to me from this direction. They're gonna have to come across here right where I'm at. And it's just a nice 15-yard shot. So this ended up being a kind of a good thing here, but I had to do a lot of work to clear lanes, you know, 30, 40 yards down the trail to make sure they're getting to me and everything. So all right, guys, that's it for the weekend. I'm gonna drink about a gallon of water and head back home and everything, but hopefully this gave you a good idea of kind of what can happen, you know, and why I think it's so important to get out here and check on things. Always, even if you hunt the same property over and over again. You know, I had years worth of scouting thrown out the window this weekend, and there wasn't a single spot that I went to that didn't need some sort of adjusting and everything. So it was a lot of work, but I'm leaving this weekend feeling like I'm in a really good place now going into the season, which is just, it is so key to being successful on an out-of-state trip like this when you're only hunting, you know, 2, 3, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 days, you know, if you're taking vacation and stuff during the rut and everything. So it's been instrumental in any success I've had out here. So I feel like this weekend for sure was an example of how it can be beneficial. So good luck everybody in the upcoming season.